I'm Princess Marya, and welcome to the official Princess Marya YouTube channel. Well, that's a neat picture of him. I don't think I've ever seen that picture before. His first film was in 1938. He doesn't even look like he did when he was older. Oh, hi mortals. I was just checking out this book, The Complete Films of Vincent Price by Lucy Chase Williams. Now, this book is out of print, but Sandor and I were able to get a copy at Monster Bash 2025. Mainly because Lucy Chase Williams, the author, did a talk. I had part of that talk already posted to YouTube in a video that's going to be in the cards up there somewhere, but I never posted the rest of the footage I took at that talk, and so I wanted to take an opportunity to post that footage now. So without further ado, here is the talk by Lucy Chase Williams about Vincent Price at Monster Bash 2025.
What made Vincent stand out to me, I think, was, for those of us who are of a certain age, was that he was like working. I mean, he was alive, for God's sake. You know, we lost Karloff in '69 or something, and the other guys before that. And Lee and Cushing, of course, were working and making Hammer films, and then Amicus and the other pictures by then. But Vincent was really sort of in his second prime, having been a character actor in the 40s in Hollywood. Now he was everywhere. There was not a TV show he was not on. And so he seemed like a part of our lives, I think, in a way that we could really appreciate his work. When I went to Yale, I was the director of the Film Society and tried to get Vincent to come back as an alum for a big special event. And he couldn't do it, but he said, so sorry, I can't go back, but anytime I have a chance to get together with you for something else, you know, let's set that up. Well, it turned out a couple of months later he was doing a lecture in Buffalo, New York. So I flew to Buffalo, and I was 20, so I'm going to use that as an excuse for being an amazing idiot and telling the registration people at the hotel that I was coming to interview Mr. Price, and it was extremely important that I be, you know, on the same floor as he was, which I have no idea why. I thought that was a good idea. And I went to check in, and I said, "Is he here yet?" And the guy said, "I don't know, I'll check." And came back to the front desk and picked up a phone and said, "Here." And hello? And here he would go, "Lucy, hi, how are ya? It's Vincent." And I'm like, "Hi." I was just so overwhelmed, and he couldn't have been kinder. I was talking about Yale. I had some t-shirts I had printed up for him, and he said, "Oh, my daughter will love these." And he said, "You are going to the lecture, aren't you?" And I'm like, "Yes, only came all this way for it." And he said, "Well, do you have a ride? You can ride with me." And I'm thinking, you know, this is this major celebrity. This is this famous guy who's just being kind and funny. And he said, "I'm going to go back to my room and clean up. You know, I'll see you at a certain time or something." Of course, I came down half an hour early to be sure I didn't keep him waiting. And we went to the lecture. And afterwards, there was a special event at the master's house, and remember they served something called rumaki, which is chicken livers wrapped in bacon. And I was like, I'm not even going anywhere near that. Well, Vincent was like, "Oh, yum, I love these. You don't like them?" I'm like, "No." Well, it comes on a toothpick, right? So he says, "Here, you take as many as you can handle." And then he picked as many as he could handle, and we went off into a corner, and he sat there, eating, and I'm holding his toothpicks for Vincent to chow down on rumaki. But at a point, in about 1990, Tim decided he wanted to do a documentary on Vincent. And at that point, what Tim Burton wanted, Tim Burton got. So how it works is he hired a production company that worked with 20th, Fox, worked with 20th Century Fox to actually produce this what was supposed to be just a chat between Tim and Vincent. So they asked me to put together questions for this interview, and I thought, oh wow, here's our opportunity. Everything we always wanted to know from him, all that, just everything, not about the horror movies, but all this fascinating stuff, everything that was important to him. And I turned in 20 pages of questions and his best stories, the stuff I knew that he loved to tell, and about going to see the movie, I think it was The Fly or something, and sitting in the back row, and there were two teenage girls in front of him, and they screamed and screamed and screamed. At the end of the movie, he leaned, I'm sure this didn't happen. At the end of the movie, he said, he leaned forward and said, "Did you like it?" And the kids just had to be peeled off of the ceiling. Stories like that. So I worked really hard, and hours and hours and hours to prepare this. So we're at the Vincent Price Art Gallery, and Vincent's, he's older and he's a little gimpy, and his wife, Coral, is very ill with cancer at this time, but he's there, he's gonna do it, and Tim sits down with him, and there've been a lot of prep, but this was the first actual beginning of the doc, and Tim sits down with him, and he says, "You're not English, are you?" And I went, oh, like this, figuring this did not bode well for what I had hoped would be this one-off chance to have him really, really talk about everything that was important to him. And of course not, he was born in St. Louis, and you'd think that you might have done a little bit of research before you started. Anyway, I wasn't there, but in the edit bay that afternoon or the next day, when Tim saw some of the footage of himself talking to Vincent, apparently he said, "A little bit of me goes a long way, doesn't it?" So this clearly wasn't going to work. He had no idea how to interview anyone, and it just wasn't going to fly. So they started to get film clips in. They were going to make it full of film clips, and then it went off the rails as something completely different than it was ever meant to be, and it was never finished. I was at a screening of House of Wax much later on, and there were, I don't know, it was a smallish cinema. How many people would that have been? 100, a couple of hundred? He signed autographs until everybody was gone. Everybody, I've never seen that kind of dedication over and over again. Everybody can do it once. You can say, "Oh, I was there one time when he did this," but I mean, it was just, was without failing.
We used ours to get something strictly for Vincent's amusement.
Isn't it wonderful?
I think I'm probably as well known as most of the stars, facially and vocally and that kind of stuff. But I've never been that superstar, nor have I ever wanted to be. It's a terrible burden. They hide, and I'm not a hideable person.
Well, mortals, that's all of the footage from Lucy Chase Williams' talk at Monster Bash 2025. Hopefully you enjoyed it, and if you did, feel free to leave a like, comment, subscribe, and ring that bell to become one of our bats in the belfry. That way you'll always be notified every time we upload a new video. And if you liked what you saw, feel free to click on some of our other videos. They should be over here or somewhere in the cards. We'll see you next time, and until then remember, if you're flying left, you're flying the wrong way.